Well, it's 2:30 in the morning, and I just woke up. I'll probably go back to sleep, but I've been wanting to write about this anyway, so it came to my mind that I ought to just come on out here. I have this little perfect little place that I can sit in night and day. I'm right outside my screen porch, and my porch lights are on, and that's the only light out here, the reflection from the screen porch, which is casting some light, and it's I don't even have the flash on my camera, so this is just a reflection from my screen porch. I looked up in the sky and I don't see the moon anymore, and I know where it is, so it's just apparently a little bit cloudy, although my camera, my phone, my weather channel on my phone app says it's clear. It might be a little bit cloudy. I don't even see any stars or anything. But I've thought about, in fact, the last 2 mornings when I awakened, the first thing that flashes in my mind is a song that was popular when I was a kid. When I woke up this morning, you were on my mind, and you were on my mind. And I don't have trouble, so that's where that song goes. But those are the first lyrics that dance through my head. I'm thinking about the fact that, but what did flash through my mind is my writing, what I'm writing about right now. I've read that when you go, whatever you're thinking about when you go to sleep is the first thing you'll think about when you wake up. And that's probably true. I don't know. That's probably true. So if you go to bed worried about some family member that's mad at you, or some friend that's mad at you, or that's probably what you're going to think about when you wake up. I'm thinking about my writing right now a lot. In fact, I go to bed, when I fall asleep, the last thing I do when I fall asleep is make some final edits or read. I've been reading. I've been reading in my Ray Bradbury Zen and the Art of Writing book, and right now I'm reading chapter 3. And what he said, the point that he's making in chapter 3 of that book is to write fast, and that's what I do. I write fast. In fact, I'm a stream of consciousness painter. Painter too, but writer. I write exactly the way I'm talking to you right now. I'm writing, and this is just a new trick I've learned because I absolutely, when I write, the same words I would say out loud form in my head, and I capture them as quickly as I can with my pencil. And so this is just sort of a quick way for me to get those same words out, because my pencil can't keep up with my brain. So Ray Bradbury, what he says is write fast, because that when you stop and think, and I call it stop and edit, but when you stop, when you pause, if you're just listening to nature, do stop and pause. But if you're just writing, write fast. Write that first draft fast. Because when you write fast, you don't have time to lie. You don't have time to think up some silly, something that sounds better, some lie. So if you write fast and furiously, you splurt the truth out, because you don't write the better side of that story, or what you think is the better side of that story, which is your edited view. You'll have time to edit later, write first, edit later. But I haven't finished that chapter because I fell asleep reading it, quite honestly. But I believe what he's going to be doing, I believe the chapter is going to be making a case for stream of consciousness writing, which is, he says that when you do write in stream of consciousness is when you make these word associations. And he is the king of word associations. In fact, I have a post on my blog, the juxtapositions in Ray Bradbury's. That's just in one little section, but he is the best writer of free association, linking word to word, like Julia Cameron refers to it in The Artist's Way too, like the war horse, the Viking war horse, linking two words together that either are alike or maybe not quite alike, but by you're associating them, you render a truthfulness and an honesty to the words that imparts a sort of flash from your brain. And if the person reading that work is going to get that flash and read you in the same way that you're thinking it, that same fresh insight. And I get Ray Bradbury's work because his word flashes, his word associations are electricity for me. I feel his electricity when he's writing. But what I did, this is so typical. I didn't sit down here to talk about Ray Bradbury, although he was the last thing I thought about last night, which is writing. But when I woke up, I thought about the fact that when I was in college, I had to work. I never have had a lot of money. I was not a wealthy person. Most of the kids that go to Ole Miss have quite a bit of money, or their parents mortgage themselves to the hilt to send them there, and then go there with fancy cars and fancy clothes and bank accounts that they can spend away at will and without any care in the world. And I didn't quite have my parents did mortgage themselves to the hilt, and I still didn't have any money because there just wasn't that much money there. So I had to work all the way through college. But I was fortunate. It seems like I always land on my feet. I thought I wanted to major in art because I've always been attracted to painting and drawing. My parents didn't want me to major in art. They said there's no money in art. You can't survive. So I became what Julia Cameron calls a shadow artist. I joined a sorority, and that, I'm telling you, that was really luxurious for a poor girl. And back then, you did have to be a shadow artist because at Ole Miss at the time, I started at college at Ole Miss in 1968, and the ladies could not wear pants on campus. They couldn't wear blue jeans. They couldn't wear slacks of any kind. But if you did have to go to gym class without your dress on, or if you had to go to the art class with blue jeans or something more art-worthy, you could go in pants, but you had to wear a raincoat over your pants to cover your hips. Now that's really telling the story, because that's a true memory. It's a true memory. And what is that? That's forcing a person who has that inclination to be a shadow person. You have to cover your intentions in a raincoat and hide from it. One of the posts I have on my WordPress blog site that people read from all over the world read this post, and when I wrote it, I didn't think anybody would read it. I didn't write it for anybody. It was my interpretation or my feelings about the movie Mona Lisa Smile with Julia Roberts in it. And in the farce, the way those ladies, those girls were being trained to be ladies. In fact, they the comment is made by one of the people that does change in the course, is that they were going there to be taught to be good wives. And I think that's probably was the intention for the Ole Miss co-ed, to teach them to be good wives. Well, for some of us, we became the best wives we could possibly be, and we ended up being good ex-wives. Or is it bad ex-wives? Just ex-wives. Being dumped in the wake. And then you have to scramble around and work anyway. But that's not really what I set down to write. What I set down to write was that when I was at Ole Miss, my job was to work in the English department, and the man that I worked for became one of my dearest, treasured friends. He's no longer alive. But he worked in the media center. That's when technology was just becoming was just coming to light. The technology was just beginning to open. And this is where the language lab was, for one thing. It was in the English department, but the people who were taking languages had to go there to listen to the tapes of the foreign language, the text that they were reading, being read in the language of whatever language. So it was a foreign language lab where you went to listen to the foreign language. It's also where movies were made, videos were made. I didn't help with any of those videos, but this professor that I worked for did help with those things. He was a media specialist, but he was an English teacher. But when to put this in perspective, I started Ole Miss 4 years after James Meredith left Ole Miss. James Meredith was the first African American that started college at Ole Miss, and when times were the heat was still rippling when I got there, the James Meredith heat, because when James Meredith came to college, it's kind of like Ruby going to school. The National Guard had to come and live on campus for months because there was so much unrest and so much disillusionment and nastiness going on. It was a time of change. I guess probably the change, but the change was still happening when I entered college. But girls were still having to do a shadow dance. I guess I danced pretty well. But anyway, so when at about that time, the University of Mississippi acquired Faulkner's house. In fact, I have several posts about William Faulkner on my blog post. One thing I have is his story arose for Emily. I have that story there, and then I have several of my teaching posts about that story, about taking that story apart and disassembling it and understanding it, because the only job I've had in that resembles a job from the English department is that I did teach writing for a while in college, and my course was writing about lit. It was interpreting literature, and I have a pretty thorough interpretation of William Faulkner's A Rose for Emily. I feel like I kind of understand Faulkner, if anybody did. And William, in fact, But let me go ahead and finish the thought about the night. So I worked at my job for part of the time that I was on Miss was to be a curator at the William Faulkner House when it was first opening. I'm telling you, at that point, the stairs going up. Stairs were still rickety, and people could not go upstairs because it was unsafe. I haven't been back in years, but his novel, the outline of his novel, was written on the walls of one room, and the outline is marked in pencil or pen all around the room and the walls, and there was a desk, and I have a picture of that desk, and I'll try to find that post and link it to this blog entry, this vlog entry, this video. But it's a picture of William Faulkner's typewriter that was still set up right in the place that he would go every day, every night, and write. And William Faulkner, the point of this whole 50-minute discourse is to say that William Faulkner was a night writer, not night rider, R-I-D-E-R, which he probably also was in a way, but he was a night writer, W-R-I-T-E-R. He did what I've done this morning. He would wake up and something was on his mind, couldn't go back to sleep. So he'd go to his typewriter in the middle of the night and type. That's when he wrote his novels. So if you're having trouble sleeping, which I probably could have gone back to sleep, but by now I'm not sure I'm going to be able to go back to sleep. So I'm probably going to make a pot of coffee and start my day. I'll take a nap later on. But I'd say this, strike when the iron is hot. If you're lying in bed and you can't sleep, get up and write. Just prop yourself up on a pillow and write. Don't just sit there and get upset and start beating your pillow with your fists. Get up and greet the day at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. And write about what's come to your head, because something will have come to your mind. I opened my mind for my mind to see. I wrote about that yesterday. I opened my mind I closed my eyes for my mind to see. And that's what happens when you wake up. When you go to sleep, your brain resets, rewires, and when you wake up, you have a fresh slate. It's like defragging your computer, which I'm having to do more and more often. You've defragged your computer inside your brain. And for a few minutes, a few hours, you're going to have a totally clean whistle. And that's the best time to do your writing dance. Start your writing routine. Take a nap later. That's fine. But don't waste those fresh morning thoughts. Get up and write them down.